Hey guys, it's me, Seren, back with another video. Today is going to be the review and recap for Lovecraft Country episode 5. Let me start off by saying this was my least favorite episode thus far. Ruby bothers me, as you guys know, and this is a very Ruby-centric episode, so it really wasn't for me. In this episode, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoilers, 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 spoilers. Even though y'all was already talking about it. In this episode, she turns into a white woman. To me, it looked like she woke up as the hillbilly bitch from episode 2. I think that was the woman with the dogs. And we haven't seen that white woman in a while. So from the beginning, because the opening scene, they jumped right in and she just woke up in the bed as this white woman. But since we haven't seen the hillbilly in a while, I'm wondering exactly how does shapeshifting work on this show? I'm curious as to where that woman is on the inside, if you guys get what I'm saying. I don't know, it's not made very clear how shapeshifting works. It's just now confirmed in this episode, so I'm hoping that we learn more about it moving forward. But this episode also revealed that Christina and William are shapeshifters as well, sharing a body, which a lot of you guys also thought. As you guys know, I did a live stream called No Spoilers, where we talked a little bit about spoilers. Alien Baby, I saw, left a comment talking about spoilers, talking about theories, and how they've kind of spoiled. I think Alien Baby said that episode 5 got spoiled for her. There are those of you that have read the book. There are those of you that are listening to the podcast, all those types of things, which is great. That's awesome. But just like I said in my No Spoilers video, not everyone wants to do that. Not everyone wants to have that type of experience of they want to watch all the behind the scenes stuff. And, some people just want to watch the show and take it for what it is. There's also people that have read the book and know what's going to happen. Please, no spoilers. I kind of don't mind theories, but I will say, some of you guys were leaving comments as far back as episode 2 and 3 saying Christina and William are shapeshifters. So for people that didn't know that or, weren't thinking about that, now you guys have kind of given away the twist. So I don't know, maybe we can discuss in the comments what you guys think is the best way to go about it, but not everybody is into fan theories and some people just want to watch it as it comes and then talk about it after. So you guys let me know maybe in the comments what you think about that. Off topic, let's get back to episode 5. This episode also reveals, like I said, that Christina and William are shapeshifters. It seems like they're sharing a body. I'm not sure if they're, the same person, just in 2 different appearances. Because, for example, Christina knew something that Ruby only told to William. So is it that they're literally the same person? Or is it they're 2 people sharing one body? When Christina becomes William or when William becomes Christina, does the other person, go into the sunken place? When Ruby becomes this white woman, Hilary Davenport, is the hillbilly bitch put in the sunken place while Ruby is in control? I'm just curious. Is it, is it one person in the fucking basement from Insidious and one person driving the body? I hope they explain how it works. But you even knew from the jump that this was going to be an episode all about Ruby because the title card was her face sort of turning into these birds. I felt like the genre for this episode, since every episode has definitely been a different genre under this sort of umbrella of speculative fiction, I felt like the genre for this episode was body horror and gore, Cronenberg style body horror, which I have a description for you guys. David Cronenberg, who's the director, his style of body horror is described as visceral, bodily transformation, infection, technology, and the intertwining of the psychological with the physical, which I felt, and just the way that it looked, the body falling apart, and the gore and the blood and the pieces of the skin, and almost the other person is literally inside, which later we learn more about this because William talks about it. But almost the person is inside and coming out. Really reminded me of The Fly, which used to be one of my favorite movies when I was younger. What does that say about me? It reminded me of The Fly, Seth Brundle, and this just gore, and this just like these chunks, like these chunks of skin falling off, like these chunks of everything. So I felt like that was the genre for this episode. I feel like I'm not going to do too much of a recap. I don't know, maybe I will. But I feel like I'm honestly probably not going to do too much of a recap because I feel like nothing happened in this episode. This is definitely meant to be sort of a character building episode for Ruby. We got an arc for Montrose. We got some reveals about Christina and William. We got some, small, maybe not small in the grand scheme of things, but small in the show. Reveals about Letty and Tick, but I felt like in terms of the actual plot, not very much happened. To me, it was a filler sort of episode, like an in-between episode, just to kind of give us some exposition and some insight on some of these peripheral characters, as well as, just provide us with some information that we are going to need moving forward. But not that much happened. So I'm gonna do it in good, the bad, and the ugly format. I'm not gonna have like a straight up recap. So I'm just gonna start with the good, and we'll recap within the GBU format. So the good. I like that the race switch happened immediately. We start basically immediately following the episodes of the events, of episode 4. Ruby wakes up as this white woman. She goes back over to the south side and runs into a black kid. The cops show up. They start beating the shit out of him. I appreciated this scene because my first thought was like, this still happens today, doesn't it? Like, they show up quick as shit for a white woman in trouble and just blame all the niggas. I also liked that they showed White Ruby. I'm going to keep calling her White Ruby, even though I know her name is like Hillary Davenport, Miss Davenport. I just kept thinking of her as White Ruby. I like that they showed White Ruby and the black kid sort of step back and put their hands up in unison when the police came, this, learned behavior of like, this is what you do. I felt like that was a very good, visual signifier that it's Ruby inside this white woman's body. I thought it was a good touch. And I feel like this show has been really good with those type of touches, not even verbal, but like visual cues that do a lot to really convey, got it, why would that white woman step back and put her hands up? Oh, we know she's black. Whatever. Reverse Get Out situation. There is a lot of gore and body horror this episode with the transformations. Like I said, a lot of emphasis on metamorphosis. It was serving The Fly very much, very David Cronenberg style of body horror, which I think was very deliberate. I think that was supposed to be the genre. Especially as William described his experiments, his academic theories, as wanting to figure out a way to sort of enact and apply a butterfly's metamorphosis on a human. This was also somewhat, I don't want to say the goal, but so in The Fly, Seth Brundle, he builds a teleportation device and he sort of inadvertently gets fused with a housefly and starts slowly over time turning from a man into a housefly. And in the end, he wants to sort of transform himself, his former girlfriend, and their unborn child into like one entity, like a whole, like a metamorphosis, like, oh, this is going to be the next stage of evolution. And, it all seemed very inspired by Cronenberg monsters and his style of horror. And the transformation just looked horrible. It just looked disgusting. Like, she's leaving body parts behind, and it seems so painful. And she's leaving body parts behind. She's leaving blood behind, and it's making these noises in her body and her bones, and just very graphic, visceral. Not like something light. Not like you just like unzip and step out or anything like that. But like you're, like a death. Almost, the skin and blood is literally, shed and left behind like a chrysalis, and like a cocoon. And I loved that there was a part where he's like working on her, and you can like, it's almost like you could see Ruby like inside of the white woman. They did this, it was like a background thing, kind of blurry, but I really liked it. And I liked some of the things that she said. She said, like, did I die to turn into that white woman? At one point she said, it felt like being unmade, which is a really, like that just to me hit like, oh, okay, like it's like being unmade. It's like unraveling, it's like a perpetual death. I thought that was really interesting, the way that they had her describe how it felt, which also, it's definitely seems like they're running parallel storylines in a lot of different ways for Letty and Ruby, because we also know that Letty did in fact die and come back. And so now it's sort of like Ruby is also doing almost the same thing in her own way within her own storyline. We learned that William was a disgraced academic for his experimental ideas before he met Hiram Epstein, who, as we know, was the previous owner of this Winthrop house that Letty is now living in, that he was a scientist that did experiments on, Black Americans from the South Side. And so now we know that William and Hiram were basically working together because he wants to apply a butterfly's metamorphosis to humans, and that nobody took him seriously until he met Hiram Epstein, and he's just like, yeah, a man who wanted to understand the universe, and, so they work together on these experiments. And I like that the show is not shying away from how these white scientists, it's just like, not only were they racist and not only were they experimenting on Black bodies, but, just like the medical racism, like not even viewing, Black Americans as human, and when really, like, they're the ones that are the monsters, which is the whole point of the show. And they're not dropping that. It's coming up in different ways, literally every single episode, which I appreciate. And some of the things that William says, like, you could argue that, like, magic and science are one and the same, and, people don't understand what we were doing. And I just thought that it was really interesting that they're framing it as, they really don't think they're doing anything wrong. They really don't think they're doing anything wrong because they just don't see Black people as human. They just don't see what they're doing as torture, or they just think that what they're doing is, like, so important, so amazing, so great, this white male fucking genius, that they can just do whatever they want. So they basically worked out this potion that mimics metamorphosis, but it wears off after a time. So now we've just kind of we've really opened up the idea of shape-shifting on this show, and, like, who are people gonna be? Like, is everyone who they say they are? Again, like, how does this potion work? I really hope they explain how this potion works, how this metamorphosis works in the next episode, because I'm so curious. There's not a ton of Letty and Tick in this episode. We see Tick beat up Montrose after Montrose killed Yahima, the immortal. I don't know how you can kill an immortal. I'm going to get to that later. But after he killed Yahima and burned the pages, we see Tick beating the shit out of Montrose, like killing him, basically. Letty stops him, ends up later on telling him that she did take pictures of the pages anyway. He thanks her for stopping him. And then they have a really interesting exchange where he talks about how he imagined killing his father after he beat him previously. And then says, I thought that the violence of my father wasn't in me, and I was trying to go out of my way to, like, not be like him. But then he found that side of himself during the war. And they just keep hammering home this theme of Tick being much more like his father than he'd want to admit, which is a very powerful theme. We're seeing all these concepts about about cycles in families. We see Letty reading the Bible in the bathtub, and she says she's trying to figure things out. And she talks about how her mother dragged her and Ruby to church on Sundays, which that was also sort of a parallel that was running through this episode. These varying memories that Ruby and Letty have of the things that their mother forced them to do. Later on, Ruby says, like, she remembers their mother, like, dragging them to a department store. Letty says, like, I remember our mother, dragging us to church on Sundays. And Letty talks about how she just doesn't know what they're doing with this, like, magic shit. She doesn't know what her and Tick are doing. Are they in a relationship? Like, he keeps being ready to walk out or push her away, which again echoes of his father and the way that his father acts and the things that his father does, even though we see somebody that wants to believe that they're nothing like their father, but they're acting just like their father. Like, Letty says that growing up, she felt that love wasn't special. She's like, my mother fell into love every 2 seconds, and Ruby was just like her. And she says that she didn't want to be with a man if it didn't mean anything, which is a little bit of context for her being a virgin, which didn't surprise me. Some of you guys said in the comments that you were surprised. I feel like that was a deliberate red herring for us to think that, Ruby's this artist, she's this firecracker, this firebrand, this free spirit, she doesn't care. But I wasn't that surprised by her being a virgin. And when she says that, Tick tells her that what they have is special and means something. And then they have a sex scene, which I'm going to talk about actually in the bad, because I didn't care for this sex scene. Tick dreams about his ancestor, the woman that burned down the lodge and led him out during the Order of the Dawn ritual. She's talking to him. He dreams that she's talking to him. Her mouth is moving. She's obviously talking to him, but he can't hear what she's saying. And then he catches on fire in the dream. So, of course, now that's setting the stage for us to wonder what she's saying. He's trying to decode the pictures of the pages that Letty took using his Order of the Dawn ring as a key, and it's engraved with his initials. So, as he's trying to do it, he's talking about how hard it is because they're, Montrose burned the pages, so now they don't have the pages. They only have pictures of the pages. And, Yahima, who actually understood the language, could have been able to help them, but Montrose slit her throat. And so, they're working with a very limited amount of resources to try to do this. And so Letty and Tick have this conversation about how what they're trying to do would be easier if his father just cooperated with them. Which is really interesting to me. Like, Montrose is really making it worse with the things that he's doing. He can't protect them by continuing to destroy shit and saying, oh, I'm trying to extricate us from this situation. They're past the point of no return. They're fully pulled into it, all of them, in one way or another. Even Letty's sister, even Ruby is involved in ways that, our main characters don't even know yet. So I do really hope that they don't keep up this plot of Montrose just trying to be an obstacle, because they're going to keep trying to solve this, and that's going to get old after a while. It's going to start to feel like Montrose is a plot device just meant to drag out what they're trying to do, if you guys get what I'm saying. Okay, we get it. Montrose doesn't want to help them. Okay, we get it. Is that going to be something that's used, literally every single episode? It's going to get old. It's not old yet, but I feel like it's been at least 2 episodes where this has been discussed in depth. So I hope the next one we see some moving past that. Also, when Tick tells Letty that he knows his father killed Yahima, I feel like if Yahima does not come back, that will be a cop-out for me. I'm not putting it in bad just yet. But if Yahima does not come back, that will be a cop-out for me. She is an immortal. She's an immortal being that we literally saw regenerate from a fucking skeleton in a fucking underground cave that's been down there for hundreds of years, It's super hard for me to believe that a mortal can kill her by just slitting her throat and she can't come back. I hope that Montrose is keeping her locked up in a basement somewhere or something, and that she's gonna come back. Otherwise, that's going to be a serious ding for me in the show overall, almost like a plot hole. You introduce this character, again, plot contrivances. That was what I was looking for. Plot contrivances. You introduce this character that could, really help them, help them just in a snap, help them decode these pages. And then the very same, and she's an immortal being. And they're an immortal being. And then in that same exact episode, you had a mortal slit their throat. What was really the point of that? And you had this same mortal burn those pages that y'all just went through the whole previous episode was this adventure that y'all went on to find these pages. You found the pages and you found an immortal that could help you, decode the pages just for Montrose at the end of the episode to basically reverse all the work you just did, which basically makes all of episode 4 completely null and void. Stop. They can't keep using Montrose as a plot device or a plot contrivance to keep dragging out what Letty and Tick are trying to do. That's going to get boring. Even in this episode, I felt like Montrose killed Yahima and burned the pages, and then Tick beat the shit out of Montrose until Letty, pulled him off. And for me, that in turn was the catalyst for Montrose to visit his lover and finally confirm for us that he is in fact gay. So it's this is what all that was for. But still, you basically wasted all of our time in episode 4, y'all could have maybe gotten to this a different way. But I did love that we finally got this reveal that he's gay. I love the line of his partner, was it the O-phase and the niggas this time, which an O-phase is I don't want to say slur. It's not a slur. There is no such thing as a slur for a white person, but it's a derogatory term for a white person, like cracker, a honky, Au-fait is a really old one. And I actually don't think I've ever seen that term before, used before on a show, so I really like that inclusion. And I'm sorry, I didn't write down his partner's name. I'm probably going to continue calling him his partner. Please let me know his partner's name because I don't remember it. But I thought that their sex scene was really interesting because Montrose is a top that refused to kiss him. Like, Montrose do need some therapy. Like, he was crying while they were doing it. He has all this repressed emotion. He's obviously, like, using this as an emotional release because he is, it almost seems like he's, like, emotionally unequipped to, like, deal with these feelings. And Michael K. Williams is acting the hell out of this role. And it's definitely implied that, like, Montrose himself was beat by his father for being gay, for having too much love, as Uncle George said earlier. And then he went on to beat Tick and just perpetuate this cycle, you know, like legacies of trauma, intergenerational trauma, internalized homophobia. All these things that they're showing us with Montrose's character, we see it. We see Montrose hanging with the queens later on, including his dude, who does his makeup to cover up some of the bruises that Tick left, even though his whole fucking eye is, like, swollen. Which, again, like, even Tick beating the shit out of his father is a role reversal, right? But we see Montrose's boyfriend talking about he's debuting a new performance tonight called Locusta Migratoria, locust reference. There was tons of, like, biblical locust references in this episode. They served me 50s ball scene this episode, which I love. The costumes, the set designs, the queens, like, just come through. I was like, oh, Montrose saying, yo, nigga is fierce. Like, he's serving me Electra Evangelista Wintour. Like, and I found it really interesting, like, that Montrose will be around. Like, he's there in Dude's apartment, like, chilling with him and the queens. He's there at the ball, but he won't kiss him. He won't admit that he's gay. Even they say, like, how can you call that nigga your man? Like, y'all never even lock lips. Like, he's just using you. Like, you're just a sexual... They don't say he's just using you. But, like, you're just a sexual release. Even though he does clearly have feelings for him. But obviously there's, like, all this stuff, like, wrapped up in using sex as a release instead of actually dealing with these emotions. But he did go to the ball. And he did end up dancing with his boyfriend in public. And they did end up kissing, and he did end up, you know, just getting into it, which I really like seeing. Like, just be who you are. It's good to finally see Montrose having a good time after all these episodes of really seeing him kind of be one way, I guess you could say. They picked him up, the glitter was falling, he kisses his boyfriend. It was a really transcendent moment that I hope allows for some growth with Montrose's character, because again, like, the closeted bitter Betty perpetually in the way and causing obstacles just so our main characters, you know, can't figure out what they have to do quickly is going to get old. So in the penultimate scene, Tick is translating the pages and figures something out. He looks disturbed. He starts crying. He calls Korea. He starts talking to someone that, I can only assume is the dead Gia, and says, like, how did you know that? Whatever, you know, that he translated, this person obviously already knew, already told him previously. How did you know that? The woman says, do you believe me now? You should have listened to me. And then he says, like, what are you? So obviously she's some type of mythical creature. They'll show us the word that was translated. It was die. And that's the end. So I'm just going to do the bad and the ugly together. I hated Ruby's whole storyline. Like, I just don't like it. Like, maybe this is unfair to put it in the bad because, like, this is just the plot, you know? I don't know if this is in the book or not, and y'all don't have to tell me if it is. Please, no spoilers for moving forward. But I just hated it. Like, I just hated the whole storyline. Like, of course Ruby would like being white. Of course she would lean into fucking Aryan pride. I think that Ruby and Montrose's characters are meant to be the problematic characters that at the same time we're supposed to feel empathy for. And I do empathize with Ruby, but I do feel like at the same time, like, Michael K. Williams is really eating up this part. Like, he's really selling it to me. And I think Ruby's actress is just not doing it for me. Like, she's just not selling it to me. She's not convincing me. In her scene where she talks about how it felt for the police to, you know, not be scared of her. You know, like, oh, they're not scared of me. They were scared for me. I feel like that's supposed to be, like, a really deep, hard-hitting scene. And I just didn't feel it, you know? Like, we see how exhilarating it is for her to take this potion and experience life as a white woman. She doesn't even need money. They're giving her ice cream for free because she's a pretty white woman at the lunch counter. And she says she finally knows what it's like to be, seen as a human being. I feel like all this is supposed to be like really profound and be like hitting the audience really hard. But I felt bad because I felt like I liked the white woman playing her more than her. I literally wrote a note that said like, child, I like this white hoe better than regular Ruby. Like, she's just not doing it for me. And even in the scenes where she's living it up, that white actress I felt really did a good job of evoking having another person, and a black woman at that, inside of her, And I also want to note, somebody did leave a comment saying how they think that red is a signifier of shapeshifting on the show. And I did notice that when she was dressed up as Hilary Davenport, she had these red gloves on. So I'm wondering if that's a nod to The Sixth Sense, the movie The Sixth Sense, where anytime you see anything red, there's a ghost present. There's, red doorknob, red balloon, all that. So I'm really going to keep an eye out for that moving forward. But just Ruby as the weak link on the show is annoying. It is. Like, she takes a potion to turn white repeatedly, even after she's told that that the Brett Whites are gonna need a favor from her. Like, yeah, girl, you're making a deal with the devil. And the favor ends up being planning some shit on the sheriff at an Order of the Dawn meeting where she has to go as herself, as Black Ruby, and pose as a maid. She ends up in the closet. There's a man in there with his tongue cut out, half cut out. It's real disgusting. We see the sheriff is covered in scars or hair or something, looking like Luther from Umbrella Academy. Don't know what that was about. But ultimately, Christina wants her to plant this stuff so that William, because the bitch is William, can get his rightful place back as the lodge leader. And she tells this whole sob story. But since she's actually William, what is that really about? Like, she's clearly planning some type of coup. So I'm wondering if William is just her male figurehead to get shit done, because she's a woman, or like, is he really his own person? Like, again, how does the shape shifting work? I really hope that gets cleared up, because I feel like at some point it's going to be necessary for the story for us to like really understand how it works. White Ruby, aka Hilary Davenport, again, like I said, goes to get a job at this department store that she's talked about numerous times and gets hired as assistant manager just because she's white. I also feel like it's implied that the resume is the exact same, but Ruby couldn't get hired, but now this white woman got hired as assistant manager. I did like that as a nod to how Black people and Black women are discriminated against in the workplace to this day. But then Ruby turns around and won't stop fucking with the Black girl, Tamara, who got the job over her. Like, bitch, I don't like that. And if the point is for her to be a coon, I just feel like, why the dark-skinned sister gotta be the coon? Like, I just don't know how I feel about her character. And again, I don't know if this is how it plays out in the book, but I'm just not feeling it. Like, the group of white ladies going to the bar on the south side. Ruby being like privy to like the conversation between the white bitches in the storeroom. Like, it's almost like White Ruby is meant to like provide a glimpse into white society in this era. But it's like, do we really want to see that? Like, do we not already know what that is? Like, I don't fucking care. Like, the most interesting part of that whole plot line to me was like the department store stuff, was like the reveal that the white dude, the boss, that he only gets inappropriate with Black girls, of course. With the white women, he's a perfect gentleman, but with the Black girl, he's all up on her, just let me smell it, like the playing into all these ideas and stereotypes about the hypersexual Black woman and how he viewed these white women as, respectable, innocent, feminine, and the Black girl as this Jezebel. So I did like that they showed that, but then even the way that they handled that, like Ruby witnessed him attack Tamara, and I feel like her name's Tamara. Let me know if that's not her name. If that's not her name, sorry. I feel like I'm remembering that as her name, but if that's not her name, apologies. But Ruby witnessed him attack her in an alley. She got away. He goes to her as when she's Miss Davenport to get her to fire her, and she ends up like raping him, sodomizing him with a stiletto shoe, which I couldn't watch. I can't watch rape scenes. I just can't. And honestly, it felt like it came out of nowhere. especially since she did it as herself. Like, she did it as, like, Black Ruby. She, like, started off as Miss Davenport, and then while she was in the process of doing it, because she was like, I'm quitting because I'm, like, too attracted to you, and, like, da-da-da-da-da. And then she had him, like, stuck the stiletto, and then she started, like, raping him with the stiletto. And then as the process is going on, she's, like, turning back into herself, Black Ruby. It didn't look like she killed him. Maybe he died. But I felt like she must be planning on staying white forever, because she can't go back to Black Ruby after that if he, like, tells what happened. I don't know. We'll have to see how that plays out. But I hate Ruby's interactions with William. Hated all of them. Hated all of them. I didn't even like her interactions with William as Miss Davenport. Like, when he came to pick her up, and then especially finding out later on that, like, he's sharing a body with Christina anyway. Like, is this just Christina, like, being a creep, being a dick and fucking with her? Like, I hate that Christina does play on her feelings for William, who's not even a real person, possibly, to, like, get her to do this favor. Like, why do you even have feelings for this white sorcerer? Like, why are you being manipulated like this? Like, these white people are clearly using Ruby, and she's just letting herself, you know, be used because she's tired of being a nigga. Full stop. Which I know is relatable to people. But I wouldn't fuck with that kind of person in real life, so I don't fuck with the bitch on the show. Sorry. I did appreciate that Christina tried to get Ruby on her side on the woman-to-woman shit, same as she tried with Letty, and Ruby told her straight up, like, as a white woman, like, bitch, you have no idea what it's like for me, which her ass didn't. Like, Christina comes in to find Ruby sitting on the couch covered in blood, and she's just like, please shut the fuck up, bitch. Like, you can't relate to where I am. I appreciated that. But then Christina came back with the feminist alley-oop, like, you misunderstood William's invitation. She should have been like my invitation. It wasn't just an invitation to be white. It was an invitation to do whatever you want. And that's the currency of magic, you know, like unmitigated freedom. Like, who are you really? Like, who is Ruby, like, interrupted? Like, imagine what you could do if you could just be white, you know? And I did feel like this is really some devil tempting Eve with the forbidden fruit type shit, you know, like a biblical reference. And it's just like, and Ruby just gonna keep falling for it. Like, again, like, so am I gonna have to watch her fall for it repeatedly? Because that's going to annoy me. Like, I'm just, I'm done. Other things I didn't like, 2 Cardi B songs this episode. Why? Like, why? Even outside of Cardi B in particular, that's twice now that Ruby has gone to this department store, Fields, whatever Marshall Fields? I think it's called Marshall Fields. That's twice now that Ruby has gone into this department store, and it's been this overbearing, over-the-top contemporary music. It's annoying. It's bothersome. It's even worse when it's 2 Cardi B songs in one episode. Up until this point, I can honestly say that I had never heard Money before. Now I've motherfucking heard it. And I just feel like having Cardi B music in a show that literally plays Sinner Man by Nina Simone as the closing music, like, that's the closing theme, is just, it's too much. Like, do y'all think Nina Simone would fuck with Cardi B? People seem really confused about who Cardi is as a person and sort of like what she represents. Like, having Cardi's music in a Black Power type show is offensive to me, but we're not even about to go there. I'm just going to say the music selection alone means no rewatching this weird-ass Ruby-centric episode, which works for me. We didn't get much in terms of plot development. Letty and Tick have another rough sex scene, which I don't like. I literally said out loud while watching, if they're about to have sex, which I mentioned earlier in this video, I literally said out loud, if they're about to have sex, I hope it's not all rough like the last time, especially now that he knows that she was a virgin. And it was rough again, outside, low key, you know? And I was just like, are Letty and Tick ever gonna have, like, sex in a bed? What is that about? Like, it's serving me some bed buck with Tick, which I don't really like. And I also did not like that they had sex after they had their conversation about how Letty said, like, him almost beating Montrose to death scared her, and she's not sure who they are and what they're doing, and, you know, he's using sex. Again, maybe it's not fair to put this in the bad because his father also uses sex in the same way. So maybe that's deliberate. You know, maybe they're doing this on purpose. Because again, like we also see that Montrose goes to his lover with his face all fucked up and everything. You know, maybe these are meant to be ruminations on using sex to avoid dealing with trauma and avoid dealing with emotions, which people absolutely do, you know. But it's like, Letty was scared of you and she's not sure what you're doing. And I don't know, like that being the catalyst for y'all to like fuck Roughhouse again, like in the dark room or wherever the fuck they were, was just like thumbs down. I don't know if I'm giving them too much credit with the theory that this is meant to be like on purpose. Hopefully it is, you know, and we'll see something later on, but I just didn't really like that very much. No Hippolyta and Dee at all. Like, I kind of want Hippolyta and Dee to become main characters. Like, you can never have too much Ingenue Ellis in anything. And every time she's on screen, you know how I said I feel like Ruby's actress is not selling me nothing? Ingenue Ellis could be on screen for 30 seconds and she's serving, like she's selling me face, she's emoting, she's serving me dialogue. Like why no Hippolyta or Dee at all? Especially in the last episode, episode 4, we saw that they're heading to Lovecraft Country to try to figure out what happened. Maybe they're gonna get their own episode. I don't know. I don't even watch the trailers for the next episode because I don't want to have any idea what's coming next. So, you know, if the trailers show that episode 6 was going to be about them, possibly great. But I don't know. It's good to see Montrose stepping into himself more. That's really all I got for this episode. So, food for thought as always. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Lovecraft Country, episode 5, review and recap. See you guys next time. Peace.